All right. So for like the last 2.5 years before my divorce was finalized and after, I've been learning about like decentering men. And because of how I grew up in the church, I didn't realize how much the patriarchy, which I didn't know that word until much later, was instilled in me and like conditioned me. So, looking at certain things or even just all the relationships I've been in, and I realize where like I've had to coddle the men around my life, uh, and even just like dealing with like all the things you gotta deal with when it comes to that type of like worldview that you're grown up in. Like being taught so much that you need to cater to a man. Not for me anymore. You need to make a man the center of your world. Not for me. I enjoy having a house to myself. I enjoy being alone. I enjoy not having to worry about someone taking up space in my area when I want to not do that. Um, like it is a lot that you when you look at everything in the past, you're like, oh, all those times back then, you're like, you really just wanted your time to yourself and the freedom to do things, and you just like conditioned yourself to just be okay with it or go along with things even if you really didn't want to do it. And like with the like decentering men, you learn about like pygmies and how it's there's a lot of them, and I was one of them at one point, and I'm like still working to not be that, but like I've seen myself in the past have that behavior and how I feel so shitty about myself in the way of how I ditch my friends for relationships, especially my last one, and I hated that. Um and I miss my friends that I lost from being in that relationship because it wasn't fun. Uh and I really always tried to have girls as friends, but even when I was in that relationship, I saw how many times the women around me were also pick me's, and they're still pick me's. Like even though I'm not in their life, I see it. I see how they are. Like I see that they are all for male attention, and it's so off-putting and in like not fun to look at yourself and realize like, oh, that's gross. Why did I make a guy the center of my universe when they never made you the center of their universe? Not in that way of like actually caring. They only cared about like what you would do for them. So when it comes to that stuff, looking at like Christianity and just how it ties into a lot of what I was living life by, it changes your perspective when you're out of it, and how you go about like friendships and any relationship, or even if you're interested in dating, which I am not. I'm not interested in dating, and it's just annoying that like we as women are pushed into having this make it all about a man when those same men will not give two shits about you later. So there's no point in making your life about a man when they're not going to help you later. They only care normally about themselves, and they're raised that way usually. They're only mostly raised self-centered. Like they don't care how you feel. And we're taught and conditioned to care about everyone. So it's a very interesting viewpoint when you're like deconstructing, because you also see how little your happiness is put anywhere close to the forefront. You're expected to grin and bear it and be quiet not have any emotion, like no wants, no needs, no nothing, and anywhere, doesn't matter if it's a friendship or a relationship. Like you, if you make a man the center of your world in any way, they're gonna just take advantage of you. And it's just like, it's eye-opening, like realizing Christianity made me a lot of who I am. And like, it's like the conditioning of what I grew up in made me like see everything as it is and walk away, because I couldn't stay there, because it makes you dumb. Christianity makes you really dumb. Um like in the sense of, like, especially as women, we're supposed to give we're supposed to give every person the benefit of the doubt. But that also means that it trains you to just accept abuse for what it is, and like ignore it, and the cognitive dissonance of it. You're like, nah, they're not like that. And it's baffling, because I did not see it that way for the longest time. And when I started with my ex-fiance, when I left him, I did not realize a lot of that abuse was happening. And like, obviously it was not like I spoke up a lot about it after it happened, but uh like, that was tough. But like, being conditioned to accept things through the church, and like how women are programmed in that way in church, to just not acknowledge when things are harming them. And if they do harm them, you're not allowed to speak about it. And if you do speak about it, that person's not doing what you're saying they're doing. Like, we don't believe you. So that just trains you to like not want to say anything. And so, and even if you want to say something, you're just keeping it in the back of your mind, like it's there, you've seen it, but you don't want to say anything. So like, that religious trauma of also just all the indoctrination doesn't really help you later on in life. It stunts you. And that's what I saw, like, being in that, and even now deconstructing still, and like also learning about decentering men. Like, it stunts you for life. Like, you have to learn everything new, like, as it is, like, as it is for real, because religion just makes you dumb, and it makes you gullible. And even if you are aware of it, most of the time people just don't want to acknowledge it, or they just want to make anybody who's the wrongdoer innocent. So it doesn't matter, even if you do say something, they're going to still blame you. They're going to still say it's your problem. So that's just something I thought about, like, with deconstruction and like decentering men. They're very much tied together. You can't have one without the other most of the time, because like, if you're raised in purity culture also, that shit, horrible. Like, I hated that I was so indoctrinated into purity culture. So like, I don't know, I just wanted to get that out, and see if anyone else had anything to say again about that, or like about their own deconstruction, or like decentering men, and like all that shit. Because learning it, I've like seen even in my own life, of like people that I've, like, women where they've been pick-me's or are pick-me's, and I don't know that if anything's changed there, but like, I see it, and I see the signs of it, and you're like, don't do it, don't be this way. And it's like, you got to be a girl's girl. You got to be a girl's girl. And even though I have a hard time having girls as, like, women as friends, I still want to be that girl's girl. But most of the time it's hard, but because they make a man their center of their world, so it's like, you can't really help someone who doesn't want to be helped. But that's all I wanted to say, and I hope you let me know what you think, or if you can connect to this. So